Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to say we're really excited for everyone to be here today. We have one of our brand ambassadors, one of Tombow's brand ambassadors, Amy Lotta from Amy Lotta Creations, teaching you today how to create a hand-lettered canvas monogram using Tombow ABT Pro markers tonight. Perfect for the upcoming holidays. If you have any questions during the class, feel free to drop them in the chat section. I'll be answering all of your questions in there. And if we have a few minutes at the end of the class, we'll give Amy opportunity to answer some of your questions as well. And without further ado, Amy, I'm going to hand it off to you to introduce yourself and get started.
Thanks so much, Michelle, and thank you to Tombow and to Michaels for having me come and teach this class tonight. And thank you all for joining me. I'm really excited for us to create together. As she said, my name is Amy Latta. I'm from amylattacreations.com, where I share all kinds of DIY projects, but my specialty and my very favorite is hand lettering. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And that's why I have a love affair with Tombow and their markers and other products. So tonight we're going to be creating a holiday monogram canvas. If you notice in the supplies that I suggested that there was a 2-pack of these canvases. And the idea behind that is this would be great holiday decor. And it would also make a really great holiday gift that you could give to anybody in your life. And I know, I might start one and say, oh, I'm going to give this as a gift, but I'm so bad. I always want to keep it for myself when I'm done. So I thought this way you can keep one and then you can give one away. So tonight we're going to work on one together. If you find that you're moving quickly and you want to work on your second one, go for it. If not, then you can just kind of repeat the same process that we're doing to create a second one later. But that's why you do have 2 canvases in your pack. So I saw a question come up of whether this was going to be recorded for later. And yes, I did want to mention this is going to be available on the Michaels website for all of you to go back and watch later. So if you get interrupted and you have to leave, or if you find that you want to move more slowly, or maybe you don't have all your materials tonight, you can come back and watch the class later and you can create in your own time, which I think is really great. So thank you to Michaels for doing that. So what we need to start with tonight before we actually get to our project is brush lettering or brush script. And that's how we're going to create the monogram that goes as our center focal point for the canvas. So like I said, hand lettering is my favorite. And hand lettering itself encompasses lots of different fonts and doodles and all different styles of writing. But the thing that people think of the most is something we call brush script. And what that is that style of writing that you see everywhere on all the farmhouse style signs and things like that, where within a single letter, you have some lines that are thicker and some lines that are thinner. So we all recognize that look, and that's the style that everybody always wants to replicate. There are a couple different ways that you can do that. One is called faux calligraphy, where we kind of do a double line and do some coloring in to fake that. But there's an actual technique called brush script that lets us do this by controlling the pressure that we apply to a tool called a brush pen. And that's what we're going to be using tonight. So in front of you, hopefully, you have some of these Tombow ABT Pro pens. And these are so fun. They're a lot like the Tombow dual brush pens, which I love, but those are water-based and these are alcohol ink. And what's great about that is that they're permanent and it allows us to write on surfaces other than paper. So that's why we can use it to make our canvas, or we could use it if this were wood, we could make a wooden wall sign. If you don't have these tonight, add them to your wish list and you can still practice with any kind of brush pen that you might have, or you can watch the video and see how it's working. Crayola markers may kind of give you a little feel for how it's working. If you have water brush pens, whatever you have at home, you can try and feel this technique and see what we're doing. And then to use it on your canvas, you're going to want to get the Tombow ABT Pros because they are permanent. So you can practice tonight, you can learn the skills and prepare to make your canvas when you have the permanent ink. So that's why we're featuring these Tombow ABT Pro, because they're alcohol-based ink and they're going to stay on your canvas or on other surfaces. So if we're ready to switch to the overhead camera view, we are going to take a look at the basics for brush lettering and this brush script that we want to get. So when we talk about how each letter has thick parts and thin parts, what we want to remember is that the thick part is what we call a downstroke, and the thin part is what we call an upstroke. So somewhere, if you have a piece of paper and you want to make yourself a note, you might want to write yourself a little note that thick equals down and thin equals up or over, because our pen is always moving in one of those three directions when we're writing. So if our pen is moving up, we want a thin line. And if our pen is moving down, we want a thick line. For example, if I'm writing my letter L, I'm going down and up and down and up and down. So you can see that the down lines are the thick ones and the up lines are the thin ones. So how do we do that? We're going to take a look at how we use these magical brush pens to get that effect. So when you got your Zoom link, hopefully you got the link for some handouts that I provided for you. So if you want to pull those out, you can do so. If you didn't get a chance to print the handouts, no worries. You can see exactly what I'm doing here, and you can replicate these same lines on a piece of notebook paper or computer paper, whatever you happen to have at your house right now. So we've got our brush pens. Now these Tombow ABT Pro markers are actually dual tip. So you're getting two markers for the price of one, which is really nice. The one side, which we're going to be using right now, is the brush tip that we'll talk about in greater detail. The other side is a chisel tip that we can use for blending, illustrating, coloring, and we can use that when we are working on the wreath and the doodles on our canvas. But for right now, we want the brush side. And the reason that this is called a brush pen is because the tip is designed to work like a paintbrush. It mimics the action of if you had a paintbrush in watercolor or paint. So when you press this onto your paper, if you just want to kind of push it down, you'll notice that the tip bends and flexes. And that's exactly what we want it to do. Don't be afraid that you're pressing too hard, because the marker is made to do this. And Michelle is putting in the chat right now exactly what markers I'm using, the Tombow ABT Pro colors that are all available at Michael's. So as we do this, just fair warning, these will bleed through because they're so pigmented. So you might want to put some scrap paper underneath just to protect your work surface. And I did not put my handouts directly on top of each other. I'm just using one at a time so that I don't bleed through to the next one. So we talked about downstrokes, which again is any time that your pen is moving down on the piece of paper. And when we make a downstroke with a brush pen, we're going to apply a little bit of pressure. And when we do that, notice how we get a nice, dark, thick line. So what I want you to do right now on your practice paper, or if you just have a sheet of scrap paper, that's fine as well. You're just going to push and bring your pen from the top to the bottom of the paper. And that is what we call a downstroke. In contrast, when we do an upstroke, we're moving our pen up away from us. And this time we're going to apply just the lightest pressure. Don't worry if your lines look a little shaky at first. Everybody always freaks out a little bit when we first try this because the lines aren't always perfectly straight. But I find that if you move a little bit more quickly, they'll be straighter. And don't even worry about it, because when you're writing letters, they're going to look handwritten anyway. So we don't need to look like a typewriter. It doesn't have to be perfect. So this is what we call an upstroke. So we have our downstrokes and we have our upstrokes. Then the next thing that we need to do is practice alternating them. So you have some blank space here and some blank space here with a sample. So what we want to do is take turns. We're going to make a downstroke and then an upstroke. So we're going to push, then release, and push, then release. And it's important that we're changing which direction our pen is moving. So we go down and up and down and up. And if you notice, there's a lot of contrast between the width of my downstrokes and the width of my upstrokes. So you want to make sure that they definitely look different. If your lines look really similar like this, then you're not pressing hard enough on your downstrokes. Again, don't be afraid. A lot of times when folks try this for the first time, they get worried that they're going to mess up the marker, but I promise you won't. These are good quality markers, right, Tombow? So they're going to retain their shape even as you continue to do this. Make sense so far? Are we good? And feel free to type yes, okay, thumbs up, happy faces in the comments because I can see those right now. So if things are going well, just let me know. And if you have a question, please say so that we can slow down or I can address whatever questions or issues you might be having. So far, so good. Yay! Good. Yes. Thumbs up. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So from here, I'm going to just switch colors. And what we're going to do is, oh, I'm glad you're having fun. Me too. What we're going to do is we're going to do our alternating down and upstroke, but this time I'm going to throw in a little twist. You can't pick up your pen. I know. Scary, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go down, and as we get to the bottom of our downstroke, we're going to release that pressure and come back up. Now, I promise you, your first one, if you've never done this before, is not going to look like mine. And I don't want you to be upset about that because I've been doing this for 4 years. I have literally filled sketchbooks with these shapes. I have so much practice doing this. And what I'm going to tell you is that practice makes progress. Practice does not make perfect because there's no such thing. There's also no such thing as normal except the setting on your dryer. So don't worry if you don't think that yours looks as good as mine. If it does, you can come have my job. But in the meantime, just keep practicing, keep making this shape. What I always like to tell folks is this is like any other thing that you and your body and your muscles learn how to do. I also, in my former life, have taught ballroom Latin and swing dance, and it's the same thing. Once you get something in your muscle memory, your muscles will take over. They'll learn how to do it and they'll remember, and you won't have to think so hard. Right now, you're thinking a lot about it, which is good. But the more you do it, that repetition, that practice is going to make it so much easier as you continue to do it over and over again. So this shape that we just made right here has an actual technical name. If you would like to make a note of this somewhere, you can certainly do so. This is called an underturn. You can remember that because it looks like a U for underturn. And that is when we're switching from downstroke to up. Does your hand change position at all with the strokes? That's a really good question. I find that I do. I shift a little bit. I'm at 45 degrees here. And as I go up, I come closer to 90. I don't make a huge hand motion, but I do change the angle of my hand slightly. And that's a good question. So that is our underturn. Now we're going to switch and try the opposite of it. Can anybody guess what the opposite might be called? If one is an underturn, our opposite is, oh, good guess, overturn. 10 points to the folks who said overturn. And 5 points for upperturn because it was a good guess. But the points don't matter. So they're just cool points that you can redeem for handshakes and high fives. So the overturn, what we're going to do right now is we're going to do an upstroke into a downstroke. So it's just the opposite of what we were doing. We're going up and then coming down, up and down and up and down. And all of these drills are designed to give you a feel for how to control a brush pen to give you thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes. And what you'll notice is that these drills are not completely random. They're actually the shapes that we use to make letters. So if you think about it, obviously we made a U here. Here, we're making the building blocks of an N, or the building blocks of an M, right? So even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I wanted to learn to letter, we're just making these squiggles and shapes and lines, I promise we do put all this together. This is how we're going to form our letters. All of these shapes, when you combine them, make the letters of the alphabet. So we have downstrokes, upstrokes, we have a combination, we have an underturn, and we have an overturn. So far, so good? All right, we are going to switch to the second of the handouts that you have. And now we're going to put the underturn and overturn together, and we're going to make something very fancy called a squiggle. And all we're going to do is combine underturn, overturn. And we're just going to switch back and forth. And the idea is, it doesn't matter how many bumps you do, we want to teach our hand to switch back and forth, because that is the hardest thing. It's easy enough to go like this. It's much harder when we don't pick up our pen. So we want to get an idea for keeping things fluid and moving as we write our script letters. All right, so that is the ever official squiggle. Then we're going to move on to the oval. And the oval obviously is something we're going to use to make the letter O, but it's also something that we are going to use to make the letter A, the letter G, all kinds of our letters that have rounded shapes. I'm seeing some questions about lefties. Now, lefties, I am so sorry to tell you that I personally can't speak to what you're doing because I am not a lefty. I will tell you that Dawn Nicole Designs, she's a lefty, and you can check out her website, and she has some tips. And I believe, Michelle, that one of our other Tombow ambassadors is a lefty. I forget who it is, though. So if you know.
Dawn and Lauren, I'm actually going to drop their Instagrams in the chat.
Yes, perfect.
I'm also going to let people know they can find some tutorials on our blog.
Yes, absolutely. No, I will say that for lefties, the rules stay the same. It's still thick downstrokes, thin upstrokes. And if you look at Lauren and Dawn's Instagram, you'll see their lettering looks just the same. But it's, I guess there's probably a little bit of different technique as far as how you move and turn your hand that they might be able to speak to better than I can. Okay, so now we're looking at the O. So the O, we're going to do, it's a lot like our underturn. We're just going to close it. That's all. People with dyslexia, that, to my understanding, would just have more to do with when you're actually writing the word than the actual technique. I don't know, though. Now I'm going to have to ask around and see if I can find any tips about that. So for our O, we're going to press and release and press and release and make those circle shapes. And if you're writing down your official names for the drill shapes, we have a squiggle, we have an oval, and you can continue to fill your lines and practice there. Yes, Ren Made Calligraphy is a lefty. She's awesome. Okay. Ascender loops. This is our next shape, and you can see already that this looks like a lowercase L. This is also what you would use for the beginning of something like a B. You use it if you're making a D. So it's going to be useful in a lot of different shapes. So to make the loop, we're making an upstroke and then we switch up and switch. So it's a little bit different than our overturn because instead of going up and down, we're going up and down. We're crossing our previous line. Yeah, and I can see in the comments, some of you are like, this is hard, and you're absolutely right, it's hard. If it weren't, it wouldn't be worth doing. And like I said, practice makes progress. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll find it. And that is why, my friends, we are doing a monogram tonight instead of an entire phrase. Your edges are weird. Okay, I've had weird edges too. And you can see I've got a little weirdness going on just in these two. Part of that is that I'm using cheap paper. So it's sucking up the alcohol ink in not the best way possible. It's not featuring the marker to its full potential, we'll say. And so buy better paper than I do. And what you can do is if you get kind of those wonky little spaces, you can always go back and you can color them in and you can kind of fix it up with the brush tip of your marker and make it look better. And yes, the ascender loop is also for an H, for a K. Yep. So if you look, like an H is the loop and then an overturn. That's all there is to it. And then K is a little funkier, but it's still a combination of those basic shapes. K is actually my least favorite letter to letter. All lettering artists, believe it or not, we have favorite letters and least favorite letters, and K is my nemesis. So I'll just put that out there. Can I show a why? I can, but first we're going to do the descender loop because you're going to need that. So this is a descender loop. It's the opposite of what we just did. And this is for letters like Y and J and G, the things that are going to go down and then up, down and up, down and up. So your Y is actually going to be an underturn and a descender loop. Underturn, descender loop. See, easy peasy. So once you've done the drills, you have the idea of those basic shapes and pen movements. And then when you put them together, you make a letter just like magic. And you can see down here at the bottom of this handout, I showed you how the oval combined with just a little downstroke or a little bit of an underturn makes an A. So for your monogram, there's obviously lots and lots of letters that we don't have time to go through one at a time. But what I did was I created a sheet for you just for this class because you're that special. And it shows you ways that I would write each letter of the alphabet if I were going to do a monogram. And you can choose between them. There's different styles, but they're all in brush script. Some of them look a little bit more printy, a little bit more modern. Some of them are a little more loopy and elegant. So I gave this to you as a guide so that as you think about your project that we're going to make, you can look at one of these as an example. I think the hardest thing, I've taught workshops all over the country for all numbers of people, and the thing that stumps them, we kind of get this idea of how to make the pen work, but then we're like, oh, which parts are thick and which parts are thin? But it just comes down to paying attention to where is my pen moving down when I write this letter and where is my pen moving up? But one thing that helps is to not have to think about that and figure it out. It helps to actually be able to look at a sample. So I've given you samples here. These are certainly not the be all end all only ways that you can write a letter, but hopefully you'll find something on here that you like. If not, let me know what your letter is, and maybe we can come up with something else. But as you're looking at these, think about, do you want to make one for yourself first? Do you want to make the gift one first? Pick a letter and then pick which letter you like. And then what I want you to do is take these bottom two lines and practice your special letter, whatever it is. So mine, obviously, I did an L for Lada, but if I wanted to do a gift, I have a friend whose last name starts with a B, and I like this fancy B here, the big one. So that is going to be a downstroke, and then I'm going to make two little loops and come back up. So I would practice down here at the bottom. You want to do more of a flowy C. So you could start with a loop that goes out something like that, that goes out to the left a little bit first. Do you like that one? Yes, no, maybe? Yeah, okay, we like that. So if you have a letter that you would like to see, you're very welcome. This is the joy of joining the class live and not watching the recording later. You can ask your questions and I will be happy to show you how to write a letter, or if there's one you're looking at and you're like, oh, I want it to look like that, but I can't fancy your M. Oh, I got one for you. Here's what we do. We go down and then we go down, up and loop and down. How's that? How about an M? Okay, yeah, yeah, is that good? Can I draw the first S? Yes. So the first S, we're going up and down, and whoop. S is one of my favorites. G, which G do you like? We have three G's. Tell me one, two, or three, Giovanna. Let's see, one. Okay, so the G, we have an upstroke, and then a little baby down one, and then down and up. H, please. Which H do we like, Tara? Let's see. D number two. D number two. Ooh, this guy's a little tricky. So go down and we loop up. So we're still thin, and then down again. A. And you have to tell me which one as you're telling me letters. The A, I'm going to start with the first one because that's the one I like. So the A, we're going to go up is thin, down is thick, and cross it. Fancy F. Man, F is a stinker, isn't it? Fancy F, you can do like something like that, the big cursive guy, or you could do something that's more like print, but you just kind of wave those. Let's see, H number two. Oh yeah, H number two is a fun guy. This is another one of my faves. We go up, down, down. Isn't that fun? It's like whoop, it's all one big motion. Fancy R, I keep seeing fancy R. I'm guessing you mean the second one, or do you want fancy er? We can make it fancier by just kind of adding that out to the side. You can loop, something like that. K number two. What's K number two? Oh, that guy. Let's get another piece of paper. K number two, we make our ascender loop and finish it off. All right, let's see. Any other questions for letters? Okay, I don't see anything. So that makes me think that you're probably practicing your letters, which is good. And again, we just want to focus on this one letter right now. And after the class, if you have questions about how to do other letters, on my website, I have a brush script alphabet where I have a post for every letter. Each letter got its own post and its own practice sheet that you can print out. This is difficult as a beginner. I totally get that, Giovanna. And that's why we're just going to concentrate on one letter tonight. Let's see. I saw somebody ask for a P. P would be down, up, down. Good. I'm glad you like the Y. And let's see. Somebody said W. So for a W, you can just do two of those underturns, and then you can add like a little loopy to the end if you like. What's the fanciest? Oh, they're going too fast. R, second one, second R. Yeah, so that would be down and then loop and loop. Yep, so just remember that anytime your pen is moving down, you're pressing, and anytime that your pen is moving up, you're releasing. Fancier N. Okay, I got an N for you. So we're going to go up, down, up, loop. Where do we find the letters you mentioned? Good question. My website is amylattacreations.com, and I will write that down right here so you can see it. And when you get to my website, across the top, you'll see a menu, and you can choose from the drop-down menu that you want to look at free practice pages or lettering tutorials. The fanciest C. C is also a stinker. I think it would probably just have to be something with a lot of loops, something like that. Something like that. That's all I've got for C. Let's see. Oh, and there is my website. Yep. Another resource, I actually have 5 books on hand lettering. The first is called Hand Lettering for Relaxation, and that goes through all the basics. I also have Hand Lettering for Laughter, Hand Lettering for Faith, and a Hand Lettering for Kids book. And on November 17th, my brand new book comes out, which is Hand Lettering Off the Page. And all of these, yeah, and Michelle is putting some links to where you can find the books. So all of those have lots and lots of information on doing the lettering as well, and lots of sample alphabets and things. So hopefully that gives you an idea of monograms that you can use. And so now what we want to do is we want to talk about some of these doodles that we're going to do on our canvas to go with our monogram. So if you look at the sample canvas, you'll see that all I did was I did my monogram in the center, and then I did a wreath around it. And I used a combination of just some little leaves, some pine looking stuff, and some holly leaves and berries. So what I wanted to do was show you how very, very easy it is to do these things. A lot of times people will say, oh, I can't hand letter, my handwriting is terrible, which has nothing to do with it, honestly, because we're looking at letters as shapes. And they say, I can't draw. And again, I say baloney, because all we're doing is making shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch markers for a while here, because the brush tip is perfect for our brush script. But for our doodles, we just want a regular bullet tip. So what we're going to use today is the Tombow Mono Twin. This guy is also permanent, and it has 2 ends. One is finer and the other one is a little bit thicker. So I'm going to use the thick boy, but you can use either one. And for the wreath that we're going to make around our monogram, what we're going to do is just what I call a messy circle. So we're going to start a circle and we're just going to retrace it a couple of times, but not exactly. We're not being precise about it. Imagine that you're 6 years old and you're doodling on a piece of paper. That's your messy circle. And that's going to be the basis of our wreath. One reason I do this is because it actually gives it a nice full look. Another reason is that I don't have to be precise and perfect. And I love that. Let's see, if you don't have this exact marker, you can practice with anything that's a bullet tip marker right now is fine. But of course, Tombow are best because we love them. Now we're going to do just some basic little leaf shapes. And a leaf shape is just, it's a lot like an oval, but it's pointed on both ends. And there's no real right or wrong way to do this. You can make it more round, you can make it fatter, you can make it pointier, whatever you like. They're your leaves, they live in your world, like Bob Ross would say. So you can do anything you like. And then you can add detail, like these little lines. You can add little veins if you want, or just leave it with the line, or leave it totally open. And what you'll find is that it's really fun to draw your leaves with your alcohol ink, and then we go back with this marker and we add detail because it goes right on top. So that's a lot of fun, and that's what we're going to be doing around our wreath. Then we also have some holly leaves, and holly leaves are super easy as well. All we're going to do is we're going to go up and down and up and down. And we're going to do that on both sides. And I can't apparently talk and do that at the same time. So I'm going to try again. So we go up, down, up, down, up. And then we just do the opposite. And that gives us a holly leaf. And the berries are nothing more than circles. And we can put them together. And once again, that's the kind of thing where we can add some color. And then we go back with our mono twin and add detail. The other thing you can do is draw it with the mono twin first, and then you can come back with your ink and color it in. So it really doesn't matter which way you do it. You get the same result. And then for the pine, very scientific here, line, lots of lines. Very scientific, right? There we go. So that's all you have to do for the pines. And to add color, you can go back in with this and add just some more little lines and fill it up. Now, the fun thing is, I asked you guys if you had a chance. I know some of you guys just signed up like today and yesterday, which is awesome. And I'm so glad you're here. But if you did have time to get the supplies, you got 2 colors of green and 2 colors of red. And the reason is so that you can go back and you can add some shading. So we can have part of our leaf is darker than the rest of our leaf. See how fun? Can you see that? How fun that looks? So we have like some darker, some lighter, and kind of combine our colors. So you can put like the darker toward the bottom of the leaf, and then you get a little bit of a shading effect, which is really fun. So that is kind of our basic doodles. So now what we want to do is we want to break out that canvas. So if you have your canvas, go ahead and unwrap it, take it out. You're going to want your ABT Pro markers. You're going to want your permanent marker, well, they're all permanent. You're going to want your mono twin, and you're going to want a pencil and an eraser. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put your monogram in the center of your canvas. And you can do however big or small you want it to be. And you're just going to sketch out the basic shape of what your letter is going to look like. You don't have those markers. Well, that is sad. I'm sorry that you don't have those markers. Luckily, Michael's has them and you can order them. You have a couple of choices. One thing that you can do is you can use water-based markers on paper, and you can make this project and you can frame it. Another option is that you can practice tonight, and then you can get these markers and you can do it on canvas at a later time. You can come back even and watch the parts of the video again if you want to see them, or you can just watch and follow along and then make the canvas when you have the permanent markers. Or can you see no, I can't see anything except for myself. So if you have other permanent markers, you could use those. We certainly recommend these. I wouldn't recommend using water-based ones on canvas. I don't think that will work because I think they'll smear. Michelle can probably speak to that. Is that letter in pencil? It sure is. So in pencil, we're just going to sketch our letter first. And then you can choose whatever color you want to use, and you're going to trace over that. Let's see. Oh, the dual brush pens will work great too. Yes. But they're recommended on paper and not on canvas. Before we get to our markers though, what we want to do is we want to do our wreath around our monogram. Now, if you have something handy in your house, like a bowl or like a big soup mug or something, and you want to trace that to get like a really round circle, you absolutely can. Some people like that exactness. I am not one of those people. I like the handmade look, and I'm not worried about it being perfect. So I just freehanded, you saw me do it, just freehanded those messy circles around here. But if you would like to trace something, by all means, you can certainly do that. And then what you can do, if you'd like to plan ahead a little bit, is you can kind of sketch out where you think you might want to put a few little leaves around your wreath, or you can just dive right in and do that with your markers. You can write your initials. That's great, Riley. If you are feeling bold and you feel like you really got this, or if you have lettered before, you can take it a step further and you can do your whole last name. You can do something that's a phrase. You can do something a little bit longer. So this project is a springboard, something to inspire you and give you something very simple to do as a start. And then you can make it more complex if you like. So if you decide for your second canvas, or even for this one, if you kind of want to take it to the next step, you can add even more to it. But I kind of like this cute little guy with just the one letter. So that's where we're going to start. So you've got your monogram sketched and you've got your circle sketched. And again, if you don't have a canvas, if you don't have these markers, you can certainly do this on paper and you can frame it. And it's still something beautiful that you can use to decorate for the holidays. So now we're going to grab a black ABT Pro marker, which I had behind me instead of at the desk. And we're going to trace over our pencil lines. And we're going to use that technique where we're going to push when we're doing downstrokes, and we're going to release when we're not. And what I like to do on the canvas is I kind of like to go back a second time right next to what I did to make it a little bit thicker so that my letter's a little bigger. That's totally optional. You don't have to do that. If you're afraid you'll mess it up, don't worry about it. But I like to do that just so that my letter's a little bit bolder. And this is the point where I know some of you guys were saying you had some funny edges or things that didn't look perfect. Then you can go back with your marker and just fix them and make it look however you like. And there's my B for my friends whose last name starts with a B. So now that I have the monogram done, I'm going to switch to the chisel end of my ABT Pros. And I'm going to use the lighter of my greens first. And I'm just going to go around my messy circles. And I'm going to go around about 3 times. And then I'm going to switch to the darker green and I'm going to do the same thing. And this is going to create the base of my wreath. So far, so good. If anybody has any questions, comments, anything that you want to say, you can pop it in the chat there. I
Hey,
can't look right this second, but Michelle can tell me if you say something I need to know.
hey, can you hear me? Do you think you can put the finished project somewhere like a tiny bit in the corner just so people can see it? Yeah,
Yep,
like, yeah, that's perfect. And
there we go.
yeah, I think maybe just move yours a tiny, you can scoot the finished one up. Yeah, perfect. That's perfect.
Okie doke. Yep. So this is what we're working toward. And again, yours doesn't have to look like mine. It can look any way you want. We're just kind of working with the same basic materials and ideas here, but you can personalize it in any way. Uh-oh, why do we have a frowny face? Do we have a question or something that didn't work out? So as we're going around the wreath, we're just going to put some little leaves. And I am using the lighter green marker right now. You can use either one, but I'm using this because I'm going to come back with the darker green to add some shadows. So I'm just coming around, and what you'll notice is I'm alternating which side of the wreath I'm putting my leaf on, because this is going to make it look more balanced. So I'm going inside and then outside, and in and out. And then can I make a what? I missed that. It left. So if you can type that again, or Michelle can tell me, that would be awesome. So we're going back and we're just going to add a little bit of that darker color on these leaves. And that's just going to give us some nice depth, like so. And then we're going to add the holly and the pine. So you can use either of the colors of green that you like. And remember, the pine is just a line with a lot more lines on it. And again, we're using the chisel tip here. And you can put this anywhere that you want it to go. We're just filling in the space. Can you make any design? You absolutely can. You can make any design you want. I showed you earlier this other canvas. You notice I've got flowers and things on it. You can do any design that makes your heart happy. And as a matter of fact, I would love to see what you guys create. My one bummer about classes like this is that you can see me, but I can't see you. And that makes me feel a little bit sad because my favorite thing about in-person workshops is walking around and seeing all the really cool different things that people do. It inspires me and I get really, really excited to see everybody's creativity. And I sort of love and hate these online classes at the same time because I love that I get to teach folks who don't live in Maryland and Pennsylvania, like in my general area, but I hate that I can't see what you're making. So if you are willing to, I would love for you to send me a picture of your project. I actually have a Facebook group. It's called Amy Latta and Friends. You can search that on Facebook. It does require approval. You have to ask to be added, but we'll add you in as long as you don't look like a crazy spammer. We'll add you in. And then you can share your photos, or if you share them on Instagram or elsewhere on social media, if you would tag me, I would be so happy. I am Amy Latta Creations everywhere except Twitter because that handle is too long. So I'm just Amy L Creations on Twitter. But everywhere else, Instagram, Facebook, Amy Latta Creations, I would love to see your finished projects. That would make me so happy. Do I have TikTok? I do not have TikTok. That is one thing I have not gone into. Then once you've got your leaves and your pine branches, all you're going to do is go back and add some little berries, just some circles. You can do one by itself. You can do a little grouping together. Sometimes I do my holly berries in groups of 3. You can see that on the sample. You can also do like little red flowers, or, you know, I picked this particular color palette for the holidays, but truthfully, my holiday decorations are a lot of silver and gold and things, not even necessarily red and green. So if you want to use other colors, the ABT Pro colors come, I believe it's 108 colors, right, Michelle? So you can use whatever colors you would like to personalize it and make it go with your particular holiday decor. So we're adding our berries, we're adding our leaves, and you can see there's no rhyme or reason really to where I'm putting these. I'm just filling in the blank spaces. And it's all about where you want them to live, where you want your little leaves to be. You need to, well, thank you for joining in. I'm sorry to see you go, but thank you for coming. So right now I'm just going back over my leaves and I'm adding those details like we talked about with the Tombow Mono Twin. So I'm tracing over my leaves. I'm tracing around my berries. And that just helps them to pop a little bit. If you don't want to trace, if you like the way it looks without this, I love art too. Good for you. If you want to just leave it with the color and not with the black outline, that's fine. Can you put glitter? Yes. Yes, you can put glitter on it. Do it. How big should the letter be? It depends on the size of your canvas. If you're using an 8x8, I'd say mine's probably 5 inches. I just basically filled up the center. You can make it as big or as small as you like. That's the nice thing about art, is it's not precise and exact. I am not a mathematician. I am not an architect. I just like to make pretty things. I respect and admire people who can do all the engineering and stuff. That is not how my brain works. So I just like to make things pretty. Let's see, my teacher says you're good with colors. Good. That's awesome. Yeah, so any colors you want. Can you put glitter? The answer is always yes. Glitter makes everything better. I would suggest some kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say something about another brand, but they're not a competitor, but it is a glue-ish sort of product that has glitter in it. I would suggest something like that rather than just glue and loose glitter because it's less messy. But yeah, by all means, make it sparkle. So I am just turning my canvas to make it a little easier so that I can outline this. And let's see, we have about 9 minutes left. Yes, colors do make it pop. So if anybody has any questions, either about the markers or the technique or the project, or just about me or my books or any of that, please feel free to put them in the chat. And then Michelle, if you don't mind directing some of those questions to me verbally, that would be super so that I can look at my project. And
Yeah.
yeah.
If anyone has any questions, just pop them in and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can before time is up. So the first one we got is, do you erase the pencil lines?
I do. When I am all finished this, I'm going to go back with my Happy Tombow Mono eraser, best eraser in the world, and I'm going to go back and get rid of any pencil lines I can still see.
Okay, and can you use any size canvas?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, 1 second. How can you protect your work once it's done?
Well, it depends on what your work is. If we're talking about the canvas, honestly, this should be totally fine. If you hang it on the wall, as long as people aren't like touching all over it with sticky fingers, you should be fine. With other types of work, I would use a spray sealer. You can always use a clear spray sealer, and you could spray it on the canvas as well. That would be not a problem.
Okay, I'm just waiting for to see if a few more questions pop in. Not sure I understand this one. Can I make my flag on it?
Your flag?
Yeah, I'm not sure what this
Oh
one.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, if you
yeah.
want to use like a country flag or
Yeah, for sure.
good golly, it's your project. If you want to put dancing unicorns on it, you put dancing unicorns on it. It's your baby.
Okay, someone asked, have you ever tried to color the canvas first and then do the lettering on top?
I have not yet tried that with these markers. I have painted a canvas first with watercolor and then done lettering on top. Yes. And that actually creates a really beautiful background. You could do like a watercolor wash.
And Riley asked if you have to erase. You don't have to, right?
No, but if you like seeing pencil marks, you don't have to. If you cover all of your pencil marks, like you can see that what I'm doing is covering the vast majority of the pencil that I did. So you don't have to worry about trying to go back in there and erase everything you did. If you can't see it, then no reason to worry about it. But like this right here, I don't know if you can see that in my B. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want to look at it. So it's gone. So what I do, and the nice thing is also these dry really fast and then they're permanent. So look how I'm erasing it and nothing is smearing, which is like my favorite thing about working with these markers is that I can just do this and nothing smears and looks gross. Tombow also has an eraser called the Dust Catch, which I love because then you don't get all these little fuzzies. But yeah, so here is your canvas. And then you can also go back and you notice on the original, I kind of just added some extra color. And again, you don't have to, you can just do whatever inspires you, whatever you feel like doing, because it's your project and it should make you happy to look at it. So there's my B for my buddies and my L, and you can see that they don't look exactly the same. And that's okay. That's the thing about handmade art is that you can personalize it. You can do anything that you want. You can, use different colors. Like we said, you can use all of your initials. You can put your country's flag. You can put anything. And these canvases are inexpensive. Yay, Michaels, for that. You can get those value packs. They're fabulous. Glitter is too shiny. Oh, that's sad. But you can do virtually anything with these. And what a nice gift, and if you don't want them to be holiday themed, again, do flowers or just the wreath. And it can be an evergreen sort of thing. But what a nice thing to be able to give, teachers, I do signs that say the teacher's name and then something that represents their subject. And then my boys give it to their teachers for Christmas. So I'll do something, with the teacher's name. And then like I did a border that looked like DNA. And I did for the math teacher, we wrote the numerals for the number pi all around the border and that kind of thing. So there's just no limit to what you can do with these. And so this one is just sort of a starter project to get you going. And then once you're feeling inspired, you can do anything you want. How about a snowflake? I love it. Absolutely. So yeah, anything that excites and inspires you, I say do it. And please, please, please show me your work because I would love to see what you do. I love to see how people take their own creativity. Can I see okay, this is the first one and this is the new one.
I think she means the one where you wrote your
Oh,
family.
the other one? Yeah. Yep. And this one is actually in my new book. So hand lettering off the page, which I mentioned, the new one that comes out on the 17th. This actually features lots of projects, kind of like what we did tonight, where you're lettering on something other than paper. And the Tombow ABT Pros are great for that because they work on wood and they work on glass, I believe, and metal, all different kinds of fabric. So in here, I show like I have a pair of shoes, I have signs that go on the wall, a coffee mug, I have a phone case, coasters, lots and lots of different projects that are off the page. They're not paper. And there's my dog. But you can see I did the hat, so that's fabric, lots of different kinds of things. My shoes are here. This is like my favorite project in the whole book. And yeah, and pillows, all kinds of fun stuff. So, and that you can find on Amazon and elsewhere. I just missed a question. Michelle, can you tell me what that was?
Yeah, so just maybe if you can just go over really quick one more time before we run out of time, where to find you on all social media. I think someone asked if you have YouTube, Instagram, and I'll drop the handles in again while you're
perfect. Yes. So my website is amylattacreations.com. And it's LATTA. It's like a latte, but with an A instead of an E on the end. So amylattacreations.com. You can find all of my stuff there, and I have links there to my books, etc., and also to all kinds of tutorials. I'm also doing in this tree behind me, I'm doing Christmas ornaments. This has nothing to do with lettering, but it's Christmas ornaments that go with all the Countdown to Christmas Hallmark movies, because I'm obsessed with those. So you'll see those, you'll see lots and lots of lettering, lots of Tombow projects. And then, yes, I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook. Everywhere that I am on social media, I am at Amy Latta Creations, except for Twitter. Twitter is just Amy L Creations because my whole name was too long. Michelle just linked to my YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, you'll see I actually have a segment on Good Day PA, which is the lifestyle show, and on Midday Maryland, another lifestyle show. And so my segments where I'm doing lettering and other kinds of crafts, those are primarily what's on my YouTube channel. Yeah, and then that's basically where to find me. I do not have TikTok, but I do have, I think, everything else. So that is where you can find me. And I hope that you do. And I hope that you tag me. I would love that. Somewhere here, I have, yeah, here, amylattacreations.com. So if you need the spelling for it, it's right there. But yeah, I am so grateful that you guys joined in tonight. I hope that you loved the project. Please let me see how your projects turned out. Please come visit my website and join that Facebook group, Amy Latta and Friends on Facebook. And then you can share your photos there. We're constantly, every Monday, we have a show and tell where people drop in their latest projects, a lot of lettering, but also lots of other things as well, and just inspire and get inspired. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and let Tombow and Michaels know what you might like to do for another project another time, because I would love to come back and teach again. So Michelle, do you have anything further?
I think we're good. Thank you everyone for joining today.
Great. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to go back and read all the comments later. And like they said, this recording is going to be available in 24 to 48 hours. So you can always come back, and if you missed something, if you want to watch something again, you can take a look. Or if you loved it and want to share it with a friend, you can share. Even people that didn't sign up for tonight, they can still see it. So that would be a fun thing to do. You can do it together with a friend or do a date night or something fun like that. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope to see you at amyladdercreations.com. Good night, everybody.